TinkerCAD tips, and welcome to the very first episode of TinkerCAD 101. In my last video that I posted, I said that I was going to be doing a series of short tutorials in TinkerCAD for the folks that are wanting to try TinkerCAD and for the folks that are just starting out, to try to get them familiar with how TinkerCAD works, how to move around, how to create shapes, etc. So today is going to be the first episode of that. As always, if you want to see my other videos, you can always click on my bio pic in the upper right hand corner of the screen there. You can see all of my recent tutorials and videos in the order that they were posted, or if you look down just a little bit, you can also find my TinkerCAD tips playlist. There's almost 600 videos and tutorials out there going back about 3 years, and I've covered so many subjects. If you have a question about TinkerCAD, I've likely covered it before, so jump out there first, look through those. You can also do a search on it. You can go to the search bar in TikTok and do like a TinkerCAD tips and then whatever subject you're looking for. All right, so here we go. We're on the TinkerCAD homepage for 3D designs, and I kind of went over yesterday what all of this is. It's all of your projects sorted in the order that you selected here. So let's begin by creating a new project. We're going to go up to Create over here, click on that, and then drop down and select 3D design. And it's going to basically open up a blank slate for us to work on here. Here we have our workspace, and the first thing that you'll notice up here in the upper left is it has a name, and TinkerCAD just loves to give them these really odd names. You can simply click on that, hit the delete key, and type in whatever you want. We'll call it TinkerCAD 101. There we go. Now what you're going to see on the screen here are a number of things, starting with this big area out here with we call the work plane. And, once you've learned to tilt the point of view, you can look around it. And if you zoom in here, you can see this is broken up into a grid. Now, currently, I'm set to millimeters. You can set this to imperial. I'll show you how to do that. And these are broken up into 1 millimeter squares, and then the dark blue marks are the 10 millimeter marks. So let me familiarize you with how we set this up here. You'll want to come down here to the lower right and click on Settings. You'll be presented with this. You can choose your background color here. I happen to use white. You can use other colors. Whatever makes you happy. We'll make it a light blue. Whether or not to show shadows, I have that marked. I want to show the grid. You can set your zoom speed, like if you have a mouse with a wheel on it, you can zoom in and out. This determines how fast that moves. You set your number of units. I happen to use generally metric, but from time to time I use imperial, inches and feet. If you have a project that needs to be done in inches, you can set that to imperial. I think that goes down to like the 16th or maybe even down to a 64th of an inch. The scale, I happen to have this set at 1:1, but there's different scales that you can set here. Presets, I've got this set as my custom or my default, and I've set this to be 300 millimeters by 300 millimeters. That is the size of the build plate on my Creality CR10 V3 printer. You should set this to whatever the size is for the build plates on your printers. That way you can determine whether or not what you're building will go beyond the borders of what that plate is capable of holding. Now once you've gotten this all set, you can click on this and make that the default. Once you have everything set, you click on Close Settings. Now you see where my background turned to blue based upon my settings. Also down here in the right corner is the Snap Grid. You click on that. We're currently set to 1 millimeter. That's sort of the default. 0.5 millimeter, 1/4, 0.1, and then off. Now what that determines is when you're moving objects or resizing, everything will snap to these measurements. If I'm set at 1 millimeter and I move something, it's going to move in 1 millimeter increments. Half millimeter, the same thing. Anything I move or resize will be done in half millimeter. Let's move our focus over here to the left side of the screen. We have a couple things going on up here. We have this little box here. We can use and grab that to also spin our viewpoint around. Currently, we're looking at the front. Looking down from the top, we can spin it around. And you'll note that this moves if I happen to come down here and holding down my right mouse button, I'm changing my point of view. But this up here is changing with it. Okay? There's a home button here, home view. Basically what it's going to do is look at everything on the build plate and set the point of view such that you can see everything. There's fit everything into view. That's very similar. You can select certain objects and then click this so that those objects then become your point of view. You can zoom in or zoom out over here. Now here's a view that can be used that's more of a flat view, like a two-dimensional view. For instance, if I bring out this cube here, we're in three-dimensional view right now, but if I click on this, now I'm in more of a top-down view. Sometimes that can be helpful. It looks a little wonky to me, but others like using that. Over here in the far upper left, we have copy, which is also Control-C. We have paste, Control-V, very similar to what most of us are familiar with in Windows. We have the duplicate and repeat, which is Control-D. We use that quite a bit in TinkerCAD. We have the delete function. For instance, I have this square selected here. I can simply hit delete. If I didn't want to do that, I can click on undo. And if I've did undo too many times, I can do redo. So that's everything that you see up here. Over here, more to the upper right, we have a number of functions and buttons you should be familiar with. For instance, let's bring out another square here and kind of join them together and select them both. This button here, and I've just recently talked about this is bundle grouping, where things are joined together without cutting in holes. It just allows you to move things in unison without them coming out of alignment. We have our more traditional union grouping, which actually groups everything together and cuts in the holes to make a single object. We have ungroup here. Since these aren't grouped, this isn't lit up, but this is ungroup. We have the align button, and we'll talk more about this, how we can align objects. We have mirroring, where we can take and mirror an object, flip it in one direction or another. And we have our cruise tool. Up here we also have a couple of other tools. D, drop to work plane. For instance, if I have this object here and I drag it up, but I want to move it back to the work plane, I don't have to drag it down. I can simply click on this, or I can hit the letter D. Same here, shape work plane. If I have an object selected, I can click on this, and this gives me the work plane for that particular shape. So, that's lesson 1 of TinkerCAD 101. Hope you all enjoyed this one. The next one will be coming up tomorrow. You can always find all of these tutorials on my bio. You know where to find those. As always, like, follow, and repost. It's good for the algorithm. If you have comments, certainly drop those in the comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback. And, of course, we'll see you in the next one. If you have ideas for other tutorials, drop me a DM. Happy tinkering, you guys.